Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every week we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Hello, my loves, the warmest of welcomes to the show. In today's spiritless world, incredible women are unconsciously selling their souls to mundane lives in order to gain love, approval, and safety, instead of allowing themselves to liberate and radiate their powerful magic. So, I've created a potent portal of transformation for those who are ready to walk the path of living their wild alchemy, a journey from the mundane to the magical. I have a few spaces to work one-to-one with me where you'll learn to open your heart, connect to your body, tend your wounds, rediscover your soul's gifts, reclaim your radiance, invoke your power, and liberate your full majesty to claim a magical life on your terms. You can find out more by contacting me over at www.nicolebarton.co.uk. Okay, so my guest on the show today is Barbara Emryss, who is a really wonderful soul. I really love this conversation, so I hope you do too. Born in France as the child of an American diplomat, Barbara grew up in Europe, Africa and the West Indies. She has enjoyed a career as an actress on television, stage and film, as well as being a co-producer of independent movies. Her writings today reflect both her diverse cultural upbringing and creative education. 25 years ago, she met Don Miguel Ruiz and began an apprenticeship with him. And her shamanic training, as well as many years of work as a teacher of Toltec Dreaming, have given Barbara a unique insight into human behaviour and an artistic approach to life. Her collaborations with Don Miguel Ruiz in the classroom and in her writing are an ongoing source of inspiration and creativity. The two have published several books together: The Toltec Art of Life and Death, and The Three Questions. Barbara has also written her own illuminating novels, including one based on her own experiences as a teenager living in Africa, titled The Red Clay of Burundi. In today's show, Barbara is here to share her new book, co-authored with Don Miguel Ruiz, The Actor: How to Live an Authentic Life, which is part of their new exciting Mystery School series. I'm so excited to share this, so let's dive in. So, my goodness, Barbara Emryss, it is so good to have you here on the Secret Witch Show. I've so been looking forward to this and can't believe we're finally here. So, yeah, there's so many questions that I want to ask, and I don't really know where to begin, but I will begin somewhere. So, but firstly, I'm really honoured to have you here to share your deep wisdom with us. You are co-author with Don Miguel Ruiz of so many powerful books that have literally transformed the lives of millions of people. You've written many books with him about Toltec wisdom, including The Three Questions, and your latest book, The Actor, which I noted weaved in the Four Agreements as well, which is Don Miguel's book. So between you both, you've powerfully created so much amazing stuff and impacted so many people. So you're real forces of magic, it feels, and really the absolute epitome of living your soul's truth. So yeah, I'm really honoured to have you both on the show. So thank you firstly for being here to share your wisdom.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so you're here to share really about your new book, The Actor: How to Live an Authentic Life, which is part of your exciting new Mystery School series. So I can't wait to hear more about that. And when I was reading the book, I couldn't put it down, to be honest, because its path has so many golden threads that I kind of weave throughout my work as well, both in the podcast and with my own coaching programs. So I'd really love to dive into that a bit more for our listeners. I couldn't really be a more perfect book for the secret witch. So, because it's all about kind of liberating your truth. So I usually start off with, and I'd be really interested in a little bit of a personal story, whether you could just share a little bit of your journey, because by all accounts, you've had quite an interesting life. You were born in France as the child of an American diplomat, and you grew up in parts of Europe, Africa, and the West Indies. So I just wondered how you kind of got to this path of soul, and if you could just share a little bit about that, really.
Okay, it's difficult sometimes, and we go over this in the book, as we do in most of our books, about, taking your life, taking a look at it in the big picture, even telling stories about it, like writing down little bios or big bios, or your step-by-step evolution as a human being, so that you get familiar enough with it so that you don't get triggered by any particular part of it, the tragedies or the losses or the frustrations. And so this is a helpful exercise, and you're asking me to do it now, which is nice. I'll try to spare you all the details. But yeah, I was born to a father and mother. My father was in the American diplomat service, worked for the State Department. And one of his first assignment was Paris, where they had me. I was the third child in a family of 3 children. And so that was my start. They went from there to Morocco, to different places around the world, usually French speaking, although we did a tour in Munich, Germany. So I've had a very diverse upbringing. My most probably impactful years were in Central Africa, a country called Burundi, which I wrote a book about, not about the country, but my experience as a girl coming of age in a very unique and different environment to what I had been used to, and how that affected me. I think a lot of my self-reflection started there. Maybe it would have started anyway, but because I saw myself in context with very different kinds of people and different dreams, it sort of spurred me to reflect a little more deeply than most 13, 14, 15-year-olds maybe do.
Wow.
And I started thinking at that point, maybe I was a poet, or maybe I was somebody who could communicate some wisdom if I could only get a hold of it.
Yeah.
But then life takes you over. And, as we say in this book that everybody knows already, is that we really focus on playing the roles that give us the most approval, that help us to fit in, that get us ahead in our careers, and maybe even help us to find mates and spouses. We're playing so many different roles, and I did too. Nothing good or bad about it. It's just what we do as human beings, and we were trained to do that from a very early age, to mimic our parents and the people who were guiding us in the ways of being human, just like any animal is guided in the ways of his species. And part of that is telling a story. It's performing first. Even before you learn a language, you learn how to perform for approval. But then once you learn a language, you learn how to tell a story the way the people around you are telling the story, complete with heroes and villains and values, and what it is you should hate, what it is you should fear, what it is you should be enthusiastic about. So you see how we're kind of given a script at birth. The stage is already set. The fellow actors are already there, well, ready and willing to train you, to be mentors for you. Once again, nothing wrong with any of this. This is how we survive as human beings. But at some point, some people decide, wait a minute, who am I? I certainly did this by 40 years old. I was like, I remember this 17-year-old girl who was just so confident and so sassy, and I don't know where she went. And I'm not saying that was my authentic persona, but it was, it was something I missed. And And that's usually, from my teaching experience, I find that's usually the age where people start rearranging their, if not their values, then their ways and manners and what they consider is a more appropriate reality for them. We call that, mid-age crisis or whatever. And it's a crisis in the best possible sense, where we're reevaluating who we are and what we're doing and wondering if this is the happiest we can be, or if these things around us are making us as happy as we want to be. Basically, whether we confess it or not, what we want to do is drop a few roles and relax. And with that little idea in mind, I think it's a little better to go through a midlife crisis, because you know exactly what the problem is. You're not blaming it on other people. You're not blaming it on your situation or your circumstance. You're saying, this is me. I got myself in a pickle here, and I need to sort of evaluate what it is I'm doing and why it's exhausting me. I'm playing so many roles and juggling so many responsibilities. And that's usually when people start looking for some guidance, some truth. Unfortunately, we have so many ways of being guided into, let's say, ways of thinking and philosophies and spiritual paths even, that confuse us even more. I got to that point where I had spent a career as an actress, and then got involved with raising family and raising actually somebody else's children. And I had a very, very good marriage, but at some point, something sort of cracked in the structure. And that something probably was the birth of my first child. I was already into my 40s at that time, and that broke every possible idea of what I thought I was, in the best possible way, but also gave me a sense of some kind of personal trauma. If this, if my reality is so fragile that I'm going, what the heck? What am I going through? Where is Barbara? Where is this, sweet baby's mother? I can't even imagine telling him who I am at some point in his life, because I had lost it. So I think at that wonderful point of giving birth to another human being, I realized I better set myself straight on who I am so that I can be that for him when he's old enough to appreciate it. And I'm not sure I consciously thought those things, but I was driven by that idea. Where's your mom? Who is she? And I'm going to make it my responsibility to make sure you know who she is.
I love that.
And so that's where it started. And one of the strange from out of the blue gifts was a friend of mine saying, I'm having a visiting Mexican shaman speak at my office, on Tuesday or whatever. Would you like to join me? And I was so hungry for, whoa, I don't even know what those words mean put together. I don't know what they mean. But I was so hungry for something new, and whatever, that sounded very new. And I did go, and I didn't understand a thing this shaman was saying, but I loved his presence. It was so calm. It was so relaxed. He took stupid questions from people with so much grace and so much love and generosity. And I thought, I think I want a little more of whatever that is. And he wasn't someone who lived in my area, so I began meditating with one of his apprentices that did live in the area, and then that escalated into a more active apprenticeship with him. Eventually traveling on what he called power journeys in different places in the world, which is kind of like an intensive 2 weeks of being out of your dream, out of your reality, and just making yourself available to life and life's information. And well, from that point on, that was pretty much my world. And I could balance being a mother. It took a toll on my marriage, but I could do motherhood. I could do friendships. I could do friendships better. I could do motherhood better as I be more aware of what it was I was missing. I wasn't looking for anything specifically. I was looking really for a way to get out of my own nonsense.
I love that.
He's a very direct, well, we're talking about Don Miguel Ruiz, of course, and he's a very direct and simple communicator. No fancy frills, no, having to prove yourself in any way or even to accept his teaching. He's very relaxed about that. Believe me or don't believe me. I suggest you don't believe me as a way of practicing not believing yourself or anybody else. And this is, of course, what he calls the fifth agreement, that skepticism. Don't believe it, but listen and understand the way people dream, the way they create and shape their reality in their own minds. We call that dreaming. For years and years, we taught workshops called Toltec Dreaming for that purpose. How do you shape reality? How do you imagine yourself and yourself in relationship to the rest of life? And that begins to shift people's ways of thinking and imagining themselves, but also it makes them very attuned to the way they think, to what they say to themselves in any particular moment of the day. And that's the witchcraft you practice on yourself. That's the spell you're under. What you say to yourself, how you say it, and how much you believe it. So this is where we start with, you could say, creating our own magic, which is just taking the strength and the power of life and interpreting it your way, putting it into action. That's magical. How you take life's information and put it into practice, not how you take knowledge, or facts and figures and human opinion, but how you use life's information in order to become a very authentic expression as a human being.
Gosh, there's so much in all of that. I just there's about 10 things that I want to dive into, I think.
Okay, good. Then I'll stop talking about Barbara for a minute so you can redesign this.
I know, I'm just like, where do we go first? But there's a couple of things, actually. It's really interesting how you shared with us about your journey of kind of giving birth. And actually, very recently, I've given birth about 9 months ago. And it's almost like it kind of catapults you into soul. I feel it's like one of those, again, I've been much like you for about 10 years. I've been exploring who I am and various different spiritual paths, but it feels like the kind of portal of birth offered that kind of descent into soul that was like back into the body, because I know you kind of referenced that there's almost like spiritual paths that take you off and almost take you out of your experience. And actually, one of the things I loved about your book was that very much it's like embracing the humanness of it, and embracing the story that that we're using to create. So yeah, that was just something that to start off with, I think is quite often misunderstood, is this idea that we have to transcend our bodies, whereas actually what I realized with birth was the body's quite well, I mean, magic can't happen without our bodies, because it's how we experience life, right?
Well, I remember during my pregnancy completely surrendering to the wisdom of the body. I couldn't think myself into having a child. I couldn't reason it. I couldn't analyze it. I couldn't be a step ahead of it. I had to totally depend on my body. So maybe for the first time in my life, I stopped judging my body. After that, it was, we make remarks about ourselves and we would like ourselves to be, taller or shorter or thinner or fatter, but I never found pleasure in judging my body after that, because I knew it was in charge. And this teaching is about respecting the body, the love of your life. We call, romantic partners our love of our life, but nobody fits that description as much as your body. It's been with you since before you as a mind were born.
Yeah.
It was there before you learned to think and to describe reality or to judge your own body. It's been there as a friend and support. It will support you in the stupidest ideologies. It will support you in the most self-destructive behavior. It will also support you if you want to lift out of this vortex of knowledge. The mind is all about knowledge. It's all about putting letters and sentences and ideas together in order to interpret what the brain is perceiving. And the best thing we can do for ourselves is to put that into perspective, not to be mindless, but to be aware that the mind is only trying its best to make an interpretation that is truthful, and its attempts are not that good. It's distorting reality. It's distorting the truth. Every time you use a symbol, a word, you've already distorted the truth, because now it's a symbol. Now it's something anybody can interpret. And first of all, you, and then whoever's listening to you. So this isn't supposed to depress people into silence. It's just meant to put everything into perspective. What you think is not the truth. What everybody else thinks is not the truth. Let's put that into perspective. This body, matter, is the truth. The life that animates it is the truth. Matter and energy, that's truth. Everything else is a story.
I love that. I love that. And I also love the way that you kind of describe it. It's like there's nothing good and there's nothing bad about what we do with that, but that's how it works. But also
you see that you can sort of, as an artist, and we pay a lot of attention in this book and every book to the fact that we're artists as human beings. We create things. Number one, our reality, but we also create dreams and structures and other human beings. And our art is something we should be kind of conscious of, not having to think through all the time, but be aware that you're creating art that is maybe unpleasant to yourself and your own dream and to the people around you, or you're creating art that's inspiring, that energizes, more ideas and more great art.
And it strikes me that the body is really the only way that we get to experience that. So I remember in your
we wouldn't
book,
be having this conversation without these. We wouldn't be experiencing the human dream without these bodies. What we want to do is experience it in the best possible way, meaning the most satisfying way, the most productive and inspiring way for us. And we can't do that if we're working on automatic, if we're saying, just repeating rehearsed ideas and having knee-jerk reactions and following somebody else's script. Even following our own script is not opening ourselves to our creative possibilities.
I love that. And in your book, you said the body speaks its own language. It tells secrets that the body is unwilling to disclose. Moods and gestures deliver messages in spite of us, and they often speak more eloquently than words. Let your senses feel what you can't explain. And I love that, because it's so out of touch in the modern world with our bodies, and yet they're kind of the whole thing. It's the whole point.
This is part of most of us have gone through the same training where we're encouraged to think of the body as our problem, think of our emotions as our big, terrible burden. Emotions are real because the body produces emotions. The problem is that our emotions have learned to be dependent on our particular mental narrative. So if we have a mental narrative that makes us afraid or melancholic or anxious, then our body will produce the appropriate emotions. So one of the most fascinating and dynamic parts of this teaching is to challenge students to separate your emotions from your storyline, from your thought process. And it sounds like something that's not natural or even possible, but when you begin to see that I'm doing it, that my emotional reactions are kind of waiting for me to weigh the truth of what I just thought or what I just said, then you realize, wow, this is a whole new production here. I'm describing myself differently. I'm designing my reality differently because I'm not getting emotional about my own thoughts. I'm not getting hooked into what they're trying to tell me, that I should be afraid or that I should be judgmental or angry at the world. They can tell their story until they get tired of it, all those thoughts, but I'm not going to get hooked emotionally by my own thinking. And that may sound like an alien idea, but it happens as you begin to monitor your thoughts and modify your thoughts.
What I think is mind-blowing about this book is really that most people don't really realize they are creating the story. So I talk a lot about with Secret Witches, and there's often this frustration of living a mundane life, and what tends to not be realized or conscious, I guess, along that journey is that we are the ones who have been creating that. And so that's, I guess, what this book is about really, is that we've been creating that story of a mundane life. And actually that gives hope, because then that means we can create whatever we like, a life on our terms, a life full of magic.
Yeah. The first few years of your life, you're being told who you are, essentially. You know, you look like your granddad, or you act like, excuse me, your Aunt Marge or whatever. Those little things seem harmless, but then you're told you're bad, or you're good, or you're quiet, or you're shy, or you're, too rambunctious or rebellious or whatever. And at an early stage in life, as you're developing a mind, as I say, it comes after you're already physically here on earth. You develop a mind through language. You develop ways of structuring your reality. And you're so vulnerable to those opinions that they become a part of your reality. I am shy. And you're saying it at 50, 60 years old. It makes no sense. What they told you at 6 makes no sense to who you are once you're grown up. You make those choices. You decide, I'm not, interactive with the rest of humanity, or I hate this food group, or I hate this activity, or whatever. All of that has to do with all those little seeds that were planted so early. And you just make them true or not true according to the, spells you cast on yourself. So knowledge can be a spell that debilitates you. Knowledge can be a door to great discovery and realization. We have to learn how to use it appropriately. And by knowledge, I mean just, thoughts put into sentences and ideas.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting though as well, because I was going to ask you about, you talk a lot about fear and courage and vulnerability and surrender. And it strikes me that when people are they misunderstand that we're creating who we want to be, there's this it's like how they might not realize. You talk about fear being a creative choice, an accessory, choose courage instead. So how do people really begin to do that if they aren't in that capacity to really do that, if that makes sense?
Well, everything begins with listening to your own thoughts. It's easier to listen to the thoughts you share with other people out loud. That's a good place to begin, and then work your way inward. As you talk to your friends, you're saying things, you're giving opinions, you're judging yourself, you're judging them, you're judging other people, and listen to that. Listen to whether that those messages are something you feel, you can support, or that reflect who you are in this moment. They may just reflect who you were 20 years ago, or last summer or something. Keep up to date with what it is you say about yourself and the rest of the world. And then, as I said, go inward. Listen to your conversations that are not spoken, the thoughts, the accusations, the the anxieties that you actually, articulate to yourself, bring it out in the open. People like to say, crazy people talk to themselves out loud, but I encourage talking to yourself out loud, as long as, you don't have an audience. Talk to yourself out loud when you're alone as much as possible, because that way it's in your face. You see it. You hear yourself being judged. You hear yourself being accused. You hear yourself blaming other people or blaming yourself. You hear yourself doing things you wouldn't have, or you wouldn't want to admit to a friend or a coworker that you think. And it's important to know that that's how you think, or these things are on your thoughts. They're in a part of your mental narrative. They're part of your silent biography. And it's important to hear them without judging them, although sometimes that's a little difficult. I caught myself when I first started this teaching, making judgments about people who were 50, 100 yards away, people I didn't know, but it was something about what they were wearing or their hair or something. And I heard myself say things like, you going out into the world looking like that. And I was shocked. I was shocked and embarrassed for myself, but that started me on a whole mission to listen to everything I thought. If I don't like it, I can change it. Getting to your point about, mundane lives, I don't want people to feel like they can accuse themselves. Well, you got yourself into this situation. Yes, we made decisions, we made choices. We maybe ignored common sense and our better judgment in making some of those choices. All of that brought us to where we are today, how we project ourselves to the rest of humanity. But that doesn't mean that we should stop listening, that we should stop trying and being inspired. What it means is, if we made those choices more consciously, if we listened to all the little thoughts and beliefs that got us to make those choices, we would make different choices from this point on. I'm not suggesting that people, run away from home or end relationships or change jobs. What they need to do is start listening. That's all. And see where the magic begins. The magic, and it's sometimes black magic, it begins with a thought. If
I love that.
Your thoughts, you can't say to people, why did I just say what I said to you? I can't believe I said it. Well, you would believe it and you would understand it if you had been keeping up with the way you think, and allowing yourself, allowing that narrative or that, monologue, to put it in theatrical terms, to take over your conversations with other people and your decisions about what to do from moment to moment. Be aware of yourself. It's not so scary to self-reflect, to listen, to pay attention, to say, hey, I'm saying things to myself that, my mom said to me when I was 4, or, my friend said to me when I was 14, and then, shunned me. I'm saying the same things that people said to me that hurt my feelings.
There's a couple of things in there. The first thing that strikes me is really, it's a process, and this is a process that I kind of go through with my clients as well, is it's a process of making things that are unconscious conscious. And I think you talked a little bit about triggers at the start as well. It's like that darkness that we have almost, and that we go through, almost gives us that powerful portal to begin to make those things conscious, actually. And in some ways our darkness is where we find our gifts. But I think what the other piece that you said that was really important is that and I know you talk a lot about kind of love and the importance of love, is that almost we need to go there into the darkness with that love in order to give ourselves the love and approval to be able to even see that in the first place, if that makes sense. Is that kind of how you see it?
Well, we need to, practice looking at ourselves objectively. I'm not sure what we're calling darkness here, except the undiscovered world of our own mind. It's not dark. It's not, anything particularly scary, it's unfamiliar. We haven't been trained, we've been trained to perform, but we haven't really been trained to reflect on ourselves and to look at ourselves as, you know, pure potential, as life is, until it starts manifesting things. We're pure potential.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
We're pure potential. When we start putting that, you know, life energy into action, it becomes something. We put it into action, number one, by using our attention a lot better than we have. Instead of being attentive to all our frustrations and what we think of as our limitations, we could put our attention on that potential. And it doesn't mean go out and rule the world. It means let's straighten up this room, or let's decorate our homes differently, and then decorate our minds differently, with different, you know, curiosities and different passions and different directions and different ways of talking to ourselves. When we start talking to ourselves differently, of course, our conversations with other people are different, and they may be a little taken back. They may be a little disappointed in us. You're no longer gossiping. You're no longer commiserating. You're no longer complaining about your kids or your husband or your wife or your job. How can I relate to you? And you may lose a few friends because you've lost that connection to, let's say, non-productive conversations. We connect through non-productive conversations. You know, let's gossip about Mary or Jean or Joe or whatever. Let's complain about our, you know, our problems at home or our problems at the workplace. And this is how we bond. I'm suggesting that we bond in another way, and we also find a way to bond with ourselves, mind to body. Let the mind start saying more things that are encouraging to this body, like thank you for all these years of loyal service. Yeah, I have complained a lot about how you're not perfect, but I see that that's the problem, not what I perceive as your imperfections. My complaining is the problem. How can a body listen to that all day long? And it doesn't listen in the same way a mind listens. It listens in terms of, should I be scared? Should I be alarmed? Should I be sad? And what emotion am I supposed to produce? So the body listens and produces exactly the emotions that story requires. So pay attention to the stories and modify them. Complaining less may lose you a few superficial friends, but it'll gain this fantastic relationship with the body, who is relating to life. The body is trying to deal with you and all your messages of despair, but it's automatically and effortlessly, relating to life. It does this automatically. It is life in material form. It is matter, and life animates it. So it's got a good relationship with life. Why can't the mind get in on that, you know, and be sort of a silent partner, or a partner that speaks impeccably on behalf of life and on behalf of this beautiful human body?
I love that. And you talked a little bit about focus there. So, because I was going to ask you as well, when we often use the word magical, it can be used as just kind of meaning something that's exciting, but my sense is that we're not really using it in that sense here. It's like,
We're
this is
talking
real.
about taking energy and using it, directing it your way. That means.
So is this kind of the real Toltec magic that you're talking about, in essence?
Yeah, you know, Toltec is a reference that that Miguel uses because his ancestors were Toltecs. His ancestors came from, you know, the area around Mexico City that at one point was a huge bustling civilization. It's very much understood by, you know, historians, archaeologists, but what he took from it was their way of creating an art form out of living, just being a human being. And the word Toltec does mean artist.
Ah, okay, amazing.
So that, we start off probably every book we write from this point on with, a tribute to you, the reader, as an artist.
Yeah.
You are an artist, whether you realize it, you're doing it or not, whether you're actually building or painting or constructing things or not. You're building a dream and you're putting yourself at the center of it. You're the main character of this wonderful story. And what do you want for this main character? Do you want to keep describing her or him in the way it was described to you? And, you created a whole life out of it. If you are described as an extrovert, that's what you are. If you're described as an introvert, that's what you've been dedicating your energies to being. An introvert, a wallflower, somebody who doesn't speak up and express herself or himself in clear terms. So is this what you want to continue doing? Because as an artist, you can turn, completely around 180 degrees and create something totally different in a totally different way. We've seen great painters do the same. They do this trying to please society up into a point, and they go, I've got enough personal integrity or maybe personal power to change it up and do something that nobody else has been doing or nobody else has seen. And we think they're, mad geniuses, but they determine their art. And I'm saying each of us is an artist of his own existence, how he designs reality, and also, an artist of expression through your words, through your body language.
Yeah, it's so liberating.
So it doesn't matter really whether you're at home with the kids or whether you're out running a corporation. You're creating art your way, and it will attract people or not attract people. But you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that this is me being absolutely authentic for my own reasons, not for anybody else's.
Yeah, gorgeous.
That's magical. That's a transformation. And you're taking the energy from life and you're directing it your way in your own ways of expression. That's taking potential and putting it into action. That's what magic is.
Yeah, exactly. And like
you see that primitive civilizations thought that, more developed cultures were creating magic. It's just, using knowledge in different ways, accumulating different knowledge, but mainly directing that energy that comes directly from life in ways that are manifest and material, visible, audible. And it looks like magic, but it's potential turning into action.
Wow. Yeah. so much there. I just amazing. And really we're
write books so you can go back and look at it and you can deconstruct a sentence and make it something magical for you. I know people, tend to glance through books and then toss them, but like anything that's informative, every time we read it, every time we glance at it, it means something else to us because we're evolving all the time.
Yeah. And obviously the book's called Actor, which makes perfect sense. But I just wanted to go into that a little bit because is the idea that we kind of stop being actors and become more truthful, or just that we harness different stories, if that makes sense?
Okay, once again, this teaching never dictates how people should be or what they should do with the information we're delivering. But this is a question I asked many times before we started writing the book. What is it you want people to learn from this? We had many conversations about it, which is why every chapter ends with, why does this matter and what should I do about it? Because I felt like perhaps calling people actors or performers was tweaking their self image a little too much, or maybe offending them. It's not. This is what we're trained to do, and this is how we survive as human beings. Every animal, once it's born, has to get up and walk. We don't do that right away, but we certainly open our eyes and we observe and we mimic. So we continue to do that. We do continue to do that all through adulthood. It's not just a way to get us, through childhood safely, to mimic the people around us and to be conscious of what they like and dislike so that we can better get along with them and better survive. It takes us into adulthood. We're still mimicking, and we're still trying to be like, I don't know, Beyonce, or we're trying to be like somebody we admire in our, in our high school, or somebody we'd like to make love to and settle down with. We're mimicking the traits of the people we most want to please. This is not good or bad. This is something to be conscious of. And how far do you want to take this? Because the more you mimic, the more you perform for people whose judgment you are afraid of, the less authentic you feel, and the more you're going to blame them for it.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's so powerful.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so powerful for The Secret Witch, because really The Secret Witch in itself is really just a powerful story that we kind of keep telling ourselves. So just seeing that, I think, is going to be so liberating for so many people listening to this, because it again, we get to choose. And we get to
choose, and we can create a more, let's say, conscious and artful performance, knowing that Miguel calls that control folly. You're joining all the crazies in the world, meaning every human. You're joining them in their folly, but you're aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. This is a conscious performance. You weren't conscious of any of your performances before. You thought you were being the absolutely most sincere person you could be, and wondering why that sincerity wasn't being reciprocated. Well, we're doing essentially what we've always been doing, and calling that passionate or sincere, without thinking about, well, does this represent me? And when I first started listening to my own, narratives and my own conversations with people, I had to shorten my visits with friends, because I knew I would fall into the same old patterns of, once again, commiserating or complaining. So I shortened my, coffee time or my lunch time to maybe a half an hour, 40 minutes tops, before we started, relaxing into old ways of talking and thinking, until I could say, this is my responsibility, and I think I've got a grasp on it now. I can trust myself to be in other people's company without betraying myself. And that may disturb them. They may not even notice. It doesn't matter. But ultimately, the message of this book is, you can go even beyond a controlled performance. You can go even beyond listening to yourself, modifying yourself, and being satisfied with being this kind of actor rather than this kind of actor. You can actually give up the whole show. That doesn't leave your physical body. That means rise above your own personal knowledge and be cognizant of the way dreams are made in people's minds, and how they all attract each other. Like thinkers attract each other. People with certain hatreds attract each other. People who want to modify and change their life and be inspiring to other people attract each other. And just see that whole dynamic, see the entire spectacle, and decide where you want to fit in from moment to moment.
That's how it. Sorry, that's how it kind of was. As I was reading Actor, that's how it spoke to me, really. It was like, we can choose our way of being, but kind of have it very much so that it's in alignment with who we want to be and how we want to show up. That's our truth for us. And I liked how you talked about this idea of will in the book as well. In day 3, I think you ended with, your will is an awesome force. It's your superpower. Command it with joy. And that really spoke to me, because it was just that real kind of like, this is just us being really conscious and intentional with how we want our lives to be.
Will is energy, and it comes directly from life. It makes, us able to talk right now and move our muscles and all that stuff. You direct will in a particular conscious way. Don't, submit to the will of everybody around you just because it's easier. Just to remind people of that, and not just women, but all human beings, just to remind people that their will is theirs to direct and to flex however they want, is important, because we kind of lost that sense of I have my own will, or my will is free, or my will doesn't belong to anybody else. We lost that sense, and it takes practice. It takes practice directing your attention. It takes practice exercising your will, not in order to disrespect other people, but to respect yourself more.
Yeah, and I think as well, going back, I think we touched on this earlier a little bit, but in kind of much of modern spirituality, it can kind of feel like people are at the mercy of the universe. I hear that a lot. It's like, oh, well, the universe is just going to guide me over here, and then we're going to do this. So I love the idea of kind of, the reclaiming of our will, for sure.
And for what benefit? For the benefit of this human being. Always comes down to this human being. It's the warm, real thing in the room, not your thoughts, not your ideas, not your great philosophies. This is the real thing in the room. And let's tune into it. Let's respect it. And let's realize that we're exercising a will and paying better attention in life in order to make this body work better for us, with us.
And even for society as well. I mean, for the collective, it's
well,
if everyone's living in alignment with truth, then the world's gonna be a better place as well. So yeah, I love that. And it really just points us back to the fact that we are the powerful creators, really. And I think when we talk about power, so often in today's culture, it's kind of got this very masculine idea that's conjured up of almost a misuse of power in some ways, I think. And again, that's another story, but just coming back to because I talk about kind of power from love, and I touched on that earlier, but I think because you also talked about how love is one of the key ingredients, really. So I don't know if you've got anything to add on that.
Well, I certainly do, because love is not what we say it is. Love is creative energy of life. We think of it as a sentiment. We think of it as a bargaining tool. We think of it as, the ultimate objective. Let's go out and get some of this. But we handle love like it was, some negotiating tool, like this is how we get what we want. We make conditions, we set limitations to how we love. If you think of love as the energy of life, the thing that's, animating us right now, the thing that makes dreams happen, the thing that makes manifestation happen, then you can't disassociate yourself from love. Love is what you are. Love is that energy that's running through you. Love is the manifest human body that was created out of that energy. So love is not conditional. That's it. Anything that's conditional or that you think should be doled out in limited quantities is not love. So essentially loving is sharing your life force. And why not? What are you going to lose? Is there going to be an end to that supply of life energy? Your body will at some point succumb to that energy. It will submit to the ferocity of life's energy and cease to work. That's death. But that energy goes on and on and on and on. So love is eternal, it's infinite, it's accessible to you in all moments. And we shouldn't act like it's making us vulnerable, or it's making us weak, or it's making us less powerful than we are. Love is that power. Miguel Ruiz uses love synonymously with energy, with truth, with intent. So essentially, sharing truth, you're sharing intent, you're sharing the power of your, will and the power that's obvious and manifest in this human body. At some point, matter cannot stand the force of it, which is why matter ends. So that force is something we can use as generously and as energetically as we want while we are in these bodies, while we are made of matter. Our next book, in fact, coming out in August, is about love and how we misunderstand it, and about
I was going to ask you about that actually, because
power and how we misunderstand power.
Okay, that's very cool. So
these are the inevitable force of life. It's not something we can even negotiate with. It's not something we can, we tell stories about it, and our stories distort the meaning of it, but it's just there. It makes everything happen. It creates everything around us. It created us, and we in turn create more power, more life, more love. And that the idea that it should be conditional or can be limited is our idea. It's part of our sort of collective story, and it's a story, I think, that's told and retold to our detriment. We shouldn't think of love as just something we can pick up and use and put down and walk away from. Relationships we end, dreams we destroy. A lot of things end, a lot of things are destroyed, but not love.
I love that. Ironically, you just touched on that actually, and that was something I was going to ask you to explore. Maybe is just because looking at your new series of books, it's part of a mystery school, isn't it?
That's right.
So I was just going to ask you to explore a little bit about what a mystery school is, and what your future books that are coming up are all about as part of that, because I think that sounds really exciting.
Well, a mystery school is usually what people call some spiritual, some spiritual structure or teaching. And basically a mystery is anything we don't know or haven't figured out yet. It's not a mystery once we learn it. Then it becomes part of our, inherent knowledge. But while it's a mystery, it's attractive, it ignites our curiosity. And so much of what's going on with us inwardly is still a mystery. So much about what the mind is doing, why it's doing it, how it's misrepresenting us, all of that is mystery. So in that sense, there's still mysteries to uncover, to explore, and ultimately make part of your routine knowledge. Just talking about, let's say, how you don't know what your thoughts are doing from minute to minute unless you listen. Just talking about that is kind of like, oh, that's sort of uncovers a mystery I hadn't even been curious about because I didn't know it was there. Certainly for me, realizing that my mind worked either on behalf of my body or totally against my body was a huge revelation to me. It was a mystery lying under the surface that I discovered. And once I started listening, I could see, yeah, my mind is feeding off of the emotions of this body. It's saying, be afraid. I'll tell you 15 reasons why you should be afraid. And then the body goes into panic, So that's what a mind that's not a friend, more of a predator, that's how that works. A mind that is a friend is going, I see this situation as unfamiliar, but I don't think we need to be threatened by it. It's just, I don't know how people act in this situation, and I've never been with this kind of group of people. So let's not get anxious about it. Let's just be as relaxed and spontaneous as we can be. That's being a friend to this body. That's being an ally. So it doesn't go into a panic because of a story. And that's what it's doing. You think you're panicking because you're walking into a situation that you remember happening, 20 years ago and it didn't work out well. Or you're walking into a room full of unfamiliar people. That's not why you're panicking. You're panicking because you're telling a story about it. And it's a very alarming story. So once I realized that, oh, my mind can work for the good of this body or against this body because of a lot of stories and judgments that I'm not even aware of, that are still a mystery to me. Then I started exploring those mysteries.
I love that. So the books really are exploring those mysteries for people, is
yes. So we have, we just decided that this would be a good way to construct a book, as a class. And there's only one student, which is the reader, and one master, the writers. And, yeah, we're all multiples, but in a sense, there's only one student and one teacher. And that's how we constructed the first book, which is The Actor. The second book about love and how we misunderstand love as a species is also constructed that way, without so many, why does this matter and what should I do? We construct each book a little differently. And we're working on the third, and there will be a fourth, and we'll see how it goes from there. But taken as a collection, they all kind of reflect each other. They all build upon each other, and in a way, tell the same story from different points of view. Because as teachers, we've realized, Miguel and I, that you keep changing the angle, the entry point, the point of view, and more people can begin to understand.
Yeah, I love that. And it almost comes full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning, is like almost you've just got that there's the mystery and the not knowing, and you talked about how you kind of didn't really understand what John Miguel was saying.
Right.
But
When I met him, he was telling little parables, and he was saying things, and language was confounding to me. I hadn't heard words used that way, but of course his was a different understanding and a different intent. He used that power, that energy of life, to change the meaning of words just enough to make me go, whoa, I haven't heard those words put together to come to that conclusion before. And I found it fascinating. I found mostly his presence, completely magnetic. So after that, it was sort of like, I want to know more about what it is he's teaching. And I learned from the apprentices he had at the time, until I was able to be more interactive with him personally. Travel with him, go to lectures with him, come to whatever speaking engagement he had in my area. And eventually that grew into a relationship where we were not only student teacher, but also teachers together, creating more students, more workshops. And so that was the evolution of us.
Yeah.
And we just started writing a few years ago together, and we've experimented with different ways of doing it. That's in some way disturbed people. They don't feel like these books have, the same voice that the Four Agreements had, but neither does he. Neither do I. So we evolve, the art evolves, and the readers and listeners evolve.
I think that's what's exciting, because for the Secret Witch, she might be in that space of kind of not really knowing the next step and not really understanding what this is all about. And actually it shows you that, you just got to kind of follow that next step on the path, and almost that breadcrumb, and keep uncovering.
And above all, be conscious and aware of what you're doing. If you're casting spells on yourself or anybody else, you better be sure you know what you're doing, what the outcome is, and how you're doing it. And then you can be, say, a more conscious, I would say, a sorceress in collaboration with life, not in collaboration with, human knowledge or human selfish motives, but with life.
Yeah, gorgeous. Wow, that feels like a great place to end. We've kind of gone full circle there. So
only for now.
yeah, exactly. No, that's been really good. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for being
here. Your dream, so we could have this conversation, Nicole. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you for inviting me to your dream. Yeah, so I guess where can people hear more from you? Because I'll include all that in the show notes as well. Where's best for people that want to kind of find out more about this mystery school, about the actor, about all of your work?
Well, MiguelRuiz.com is a website for, to reference all of his teachings. I have conversations with him I've been having the last few Saturdays about this book, and tomorrow will be another conversation on video. I also have phone calls every Tuesday morning at 7 Pacific that are advertised on that website, where I just chat with whoever's on the phone call. It's all anonymous, it's all relaxed, and we talk about everything that has to do with, their concerns in their lives. So that's fun too. But the MiguelRuiz.com website gives you information on all of that, including the books. Not only he has written, that we've written together, but his sons are writing. So
Yeah, amazing. And he's doing great work. And actually, he is going to be a guest for the next show as well. So I'm really looking forward to that.
fantastic.
Yeah, so thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure and a real honor to be able to have this conversation with you. It's been a lot of fun. So thank you.
Appreciate it, Nicole. You have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Wow, I just adored speaking to Barbara. What a magical insight into how we can harness story to create an authentic life. Here are my top takeaways. In life, we have focused on playing the roles that give us the most approval, help us to fit in and to get ahead. There's nothing good or bad about that. It's just what we've been trained to do as human beings. We perform for approval and tell a story. But at some point, we start to question, who am I? And choose to rearrange our ways of being and become more authentically us. And it's during this time we begin to stop blaming people and choose again for ourselves. We just need to imagine ourselves differently to allow us to more consciously perform our witchcraft of life, choosing how best to weave our own magic. This is because we are powerful artists. We create and cast spells on ourselves with knowledge. We can create art that is unpleasant or beautiful, and we long to create the art that is most inspiring for us. Our personal will is energy that comes directly from life. We often lose the sense that our will is ours. It takes practice directing our attention, but we can reclaim it by directing it in a conscious way instead of submitting to the will of others because it's easier. This is for the benefit of this human being and society. We are pure potential. Life energy is put into action via our attention. If we put our energy on our potential, we will manifest that. I love how she described that we can decorate our minds differently with passion. Magic is taking energy from life and directing it in a certain way, your unique way, to transform it into manifestation, potential turning into action. We're all artists building a dream, and you can create something totally different at any time. The real question is, what do you want for the main character? If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.